All right, that is James Mennie. He is over at the Montreal Gazette. And Jim, I had a chance to speak to Charles Milliard about an hour or so ago. I'm reading text messages from people. A lot of people very impressed by what they heard. What are you thinking here?
Well, I listened to the interview as well. It was a gosh darn fine interview, Aaron. However, and as I said in my little note to you this afternoon when I was giving you a heads up as to what we're going to talk about, what exactly does renewal of the Quebec Liberal Party mean? And I have to tell you, I mean, maybe it's because I've lived here all my life. I'm a Quebec Anglo, and I get a little gun-shy when it comes to the Quebec Liberal Party. No matter who's doing the talking.
Okay.
I don't know Charles Milliard from a hole in the ground. But especially when he harkens back to the days of, the days of Robert Bourassa, when the regions were well represented. Yeah, and the real bus throwing of Anglos or other inconvenient groups really began under Robert Bourassa. I mean, the Liberal Party became a very small end nationalist party under Bourassa's watch. He is the person who made it clear that, and indeed, the things that you and I have raved about, we have premiers like Legault, who are only in Confederation, who are only a part of in Canada, so long as it profits Quebec. Well, Bourassa kind of created a template for that, but he said it out loud, when he says, "Where's my booty? Where's my money? Where's my cash?" And I'm not expecting, everything is fine. I know the party has to be completely refurbished. I know they have to go out and rebuild the bridges that the Liberal Party themselves blew up over the past 8 years and even 10 years in the regions by becoming this very aloof kind of ivory tower kind of, we know better than anybody else what to do. And they paid the price for it. But right now, he sounds good. He sounds all right. He certainly produced, and I'll for a guy, I'm not politics. Yeah, well, guess what? When you go on CJAD and the main message that you put out is no, Bill 96 is the wrong way to go. You are not a politician. You're conveying a message, obviously, and you're seeing the results, as you say, on the text board right now. You are telling people who are listening to CJAD exactly what they want to hear. I look forward to his next interview with you, Aaron, when you ask him what he thinks about Bill 21, and then we'll see how that unfolds as well. But in the meantime, you had a limited amount of time. We got a snapshot of the guy, and quite frankly, I think everybody, I'm sure this interview is going to be posted. Bookmark that interview, folks, because as I keep saying, I don't think he's going to have any competition. I think he'll be declared leader of the party by the middle of February. And honestly, just given when you look at what he's up against, Aaron, it's hard to think. I know you're gonna jinx it now, Mennie. It's hard to not see this guy as being the next premier of Quebec.
Well, look, I mean, he's young. He's got a great business background. He's from the regions. A lot of things you can tick off that would, actually work in your favor. So I think that's number one. And with respect to Bill 21, Jim, I think the answer was, we need to change the definition of secularism, right? Which is an interesting way to sort of deal with that.
Yeah.
Not sure what that means, but
well, exactly. I mean, listen, I'm just trying to be devil's advocate here because we've been burned before, Aaron. So it's like I listen. I wish him every success. He sounds like he believes in the product. He sounds like he's a guy who actually believes in the country, not that that's young, but the country of Canada. And yes, Quebec has a fundamental role to play in that country with its own identity, with its own language. But holy moly, Aaron, between point A and point B, between point A and the National Assembly or the Premier's office, who knows how many detours and how many corners will be cut? I don't know. All I'm saying is, hope for the best, prepare for the worst until you're shown otherwise. But in the meantime, I think as his first English language interview since declaring for the leadership, I think it went very swimmingly and very informatively.
I wonder too, and I kind of just, we didn't have a lot of time, but just wanted to bring up the situation with Pablo Rodriguez. Do you think, this idea of being sort of, guilt by association as he goes out there, that people will continue to do that for a while, or is that just old? Is that done?
I got to tell you, he spent a lot more time talking about Pablo Rodriguez with you than I thought he would. But the fact is, I know you're asking the questions, but there's lots of ways he could have skated around that. I think he knows that, you can't sort of like pretend you've hit nothing happened. It was, it was Bobby Ewing in the shower. It was all a dream. No. Let's just move forward. No, as I say, the headlines will continue. The investigations will continue. The ethics committee reports and the internal reports will be eventually made public. And he is going to have, the next leader is going to have to deal with the fallout of all of those things. But the fact that I think he's willing to look that issue in the eye and move on and realize, and I if nothing else, I got the impression, and it was a favorable one, that he understands it's up. He's the guy who's got to save this party.
Right.
It's not going to be the rank and file. It's going to be someone who's going to be able to be a lightning rod, either for the dissatisfaction and to dissipate that, or to take all of that passion that liberals used to have. And I remember, my God, I covered Robert Barassa's comeback in politics, and those church basements out in the East End. Let me tell you, you heard roars that would have blotted out a PQ rally. So can he tap into that? Can he recreate that? Can he jumpstart this party's fortunes? I mean, we'll see. But like I say, so far so good. And the irony, of course, being that, and this is a terrible thing to say, but essentially what you said, and what a lot of other people have said as well, well, this guy can't be compared to any other of the party leaders. So you know what? That's in his favor. So in other words, he's not a kind of, egotistical, referendum-obsessed, one-man show. Yeah. He seems, and I think perhaps, and once again, he goes, I jinxed it again, Mennie. I think what helped Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon move up in the polls, which was, I'm sorry, it wasn't sovereignty, we know that. It was he wasn't the other guy, or guys. Well, in this particular instance, I think the same thing is going to happen with Monsieur Milliard, and I think, I'm sorry, I'll say it out loud, I think it's his to lose.
By the way, not that I was surprised, because you would have expected this from, a liberal, but the idea, talking about the referendum and about the PQ and sovereignty and whatever, I think was pretty unequivocal about that kind of stuff, which maybe for some people is a surprise. I don't know.
It's the brand. It's what they do. And you and I don't know, if it's going to help us health-wise, but we'll certainly feel a lot younger talking about the separatist federalist dynamic that is going to be return as the mainstay of Quebec's political debate.
All right, let me move on and talk a little bit about Mark Carney. Next big meeting coming up in China. He spent a lot of time trying to get stuff done as well. Ukraine, China. You call it his crazy world tour. What good thing, bad thing?
He's like the Willie Loman of Canadian politics, right? He's going from one country to the next. He's drumming up business. I've never seen a prime minister do that, but then again, I never saw a prime minister have to deal with a whack job like Donald Trump. But what I found interesting is I forget who was being quoted in that news report. Is that when they say, well, the Chinese are very unpredictable. Remember, our relationship with China really soured after we detained, indeed arrested, the head of Huawei on the instructions of Donald Trump. So this was perhaps a problem of our own making. I'm sure, and this is the other thing as well. When you look at a guy like Mark Carney, he wasn't the former Postmaster General of Winnipeg. This guy was the head of the Bank of England, the head of the Bank of Canada. This guy has contact. He knows everybody he's going to see over in China. Let's put it that way. And I think that he knows what the backstory is. He knows what the desires are. And I think if he's going to go in there next week, chances are it's not going to be as someone who is, help me escape the clutches of Donald Trump. Yeah. I think he's going to look at his whoever his counterpart in that particular instance will be and say, listen, we're in the same, whether you like it or not, we're in the same boat, because you see how crazy this guy is. It doesn't matter whether it's going to make any sense. If he thinks it's going to distract from all his problems back at home, he's going to screw you guys over as well. So I think, and I hate to say it, Aaron, that terrible news out of Minnesota now, I think a tipping point has been reached, and I think a lot of governments are going to be far more vocal in their criticisms of Trump and the idea, and by extension, the deafening silence from the American political apparatus as to what this lunatic is doing. But that said, my hat's off to him. You don't have to like Mark Carney to appreciate what he's doing. And quite frankly, as I say, as far as I'm concerned, it's unprecedented to see a prime minister go from one country to the other, essentially like a traveling salesman. So good on him. And you know, I wish him every success because his success will be ours.
And by the way, in the case of China, I mean, let's remember, you know, we went through some bad times. Michael Kovrig, Michael Spavor.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the first visit by a Canadian Prime Minister since, I think, 2017, if I remember.
Yeah.
So there's significance in that as well. And then if you come back home with something to show for it, even better. So we'll wait and see. But yeah, as you said, Jim, he's wasting no time. And I think that's something we haven't seen probably from a Canadian Prime Minister in quite some time. So we'll leave it at that. Jim, thank you.
Adama.
Introducing Bryan Adams Radio on iHeartRadio. Hosted by Bryan Adams himself.
Join me for an insider look on a wild ride through 40 years of global rock and roll.
Bryan Adams Radio. Now available on the free iHeartRadio app. Or ask your smart speaker to play Bryan Adams Radio on iHeartRadio.
Who's ready to rock?
Kids wanna rock.